Cougar football fans.
40, 30, 20, 10, and that's how you do it.
This hour, First and 12 looks ahead to the 2024 season to come.
Up for the touchdown! He came down with it! He came down with it!
The Big 12 expands again, and the BYU-Utah rivalry is back at center stage. Our hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It is First and 12. Happy Sunday to you. Thanks for being with us. You can always download the podcast if you miss any part of it, whatever. Go back and listen to the last hour, but we're super pumped for this hour. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. Did we get big enough to have Tim Hughes do an open for us, Mitch? Did we make it this year? Is that what just happened?
Yes.
I'm excited, man.
The PA voice of the Las Vegas Raiders just introed us. Pretty awesome.
Tim does a great job, obviously, Tim and Amanda fame, but his announcer voice knows now. And with the announcement of the Olympics coming back, I would assume
Yes.
Tim's going to be center stage for that, too. So we've got tons to cover here. But, we were trying to figure out, I mean, there's certainly not a shortage of things for us to be able to jump into on this. But, when we start to talk about what this is going to look like next year, and what the Big 12 is going to do. I don't think, even though we've talked about it, Mitch, like all season long, knowing exactly what was going to happen, at the same time, like I actually, now that I'm starting to really think about it and allow myself, now that the season is over in the Big 12 and the Pac-12, now we can actually look toward August 2nd, 2024, which is when the schools officially join. Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado, and, of course, Utah coming to the Big 12 to make it a 16-team conference. You saw at the back of the end zone in the Big 12 championship game on Saturday. It had it right there in the end zone, greater than 12, right? And not only that, it's way more than 12. And I think that has something – I really look forward to what this conference can be. And to know that Arizona was as good as they were this year and they're on the rise, that's really, really good for the conference. Utah, of course, is going to come in as one of these, maybe standard bearers. But the good news is you don't really know. That's part of what makes our job fun, right?
It is strange to stack up these programs and think this is all one league. I will admit it is unusual, but this is the new era of college football, and I think there's a bright future ahead for these programs. And I love that it's 16 teams that all are looking to become something greater than they've ever been in the 12-team playoff era. That's what's so great about moving forward. If this didn't have the 12-team playoff, Alex, this league wouldn't have as much hope and as bright of a future, because with the 12-team playoff, when you win this league, you're going to the playoff and you're having a chance to play for the national title and let it be settled on the field. If it was a 4-team playoff still, this would not be as pretty of a situation for the Big 12. It would be tough. So I think that injects so much hope and energy that you win this, you're going to be chasing a title. And that's awesome for this conference. And I'm very curious to see how it all transitions and the work that's going to be taking place. We're going to see the schedule come out in early January. That's according to Scott Draper yesterday, the football ops individual with the Big 12 Conference. But they as late as January 31st, but I think we're going to see it that early January. So that's exciting to get dates on these football games in 2024. We already know the opponents, but all the work that's going to have to take place. What's the branding going to be of this league? We expect it's going to be Big 12 still, but what tweaks does your mark incorporate to really emphasize that this is the new look Big 12 with Utah, with Arizona State, and now Coach Prime, Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year, joining the Big 12. There's so much energy and so much unknowns. I'm just fascinated to kind of follow it and cover it and report on it, because it is going to be it's historic to have almost like a new league being created, and that's what we're going to see here coming up next year.
Let me ask you this, though, because we talked a little bit about it last hour where, one of the weird things that's happened is to hear, and I get that Kyle Whittingham, he's like, I'm not going to talk about like, oh, yeah, our fun new conference next year. Can't wait. Let me just finish this one up over here, and then I'll get to that one. But it kind of came across as, whatever, it is what it is. We just kind of had to do it, I guess, and then the fan base sort of follows suit and goes, gets on social media and goes, "You're lucky to have us. We didn't want to be there, but we'll take it, right? And we'll have to. And you'll be blessed by the presence there." Why is there this vibe from Utah that, like, this isn't good enough? That, you know, the trucker conference, all this stuff. I mean, it's not like Utah has this blue blood background. And you know, I mean, we could bring up all the same, you know, fighting points that people have had, but I'm like, that's a weird flex to have. Like, we don't need this conference, but I guess we need it, but we don't want to be here. But as soon as this temporary situation gets figured out, it's like they're living in an apartment and they're waiting to move into that mansion. It's like, come on, you know, that's not – you got to figure this thing out here. You got to lift where you stand and actually kind of, you know, win something, right? I mean, they got to get to the Big 12 and make an impact. And they can. So why not just own it and be like, yes, we're so gracious to be here. This is amazing, and we're going to kick your butts. And then if something better comes along over the next 20 years, which is what everybody's going to want to do, Mitch, try to figure it out. I just don't get the vibe of doing that right now if you're Utah.
Yeah, I don't, you know, understand that myself. I think the only thing that I point to would be the fact that they're now rejoined with BYU. I mean, that is a point of contention for Utah. They did not want to be in the same world as BYU again because, you know, BYU has its handcuffs and it's got its issues, and there's its fair share of detractors with BYU, and they kind of defeat themselves sometimes in their potential as a program. But, you know, BYU being on even footing with Utah, that creates some potential challenges that Utah hasn't experienced in the past decade. You know, Utah has cleaned up on the recruiting trail compared to BYU, in large part because, well, they were in a power league and BYU wasn't, but also, like, to make it clear to in-state recruits, you want to go to BYU where you're not playing for anything as an independent, or you can come here and go chase a Rose Bowl, go chase a Pac-12 title, and, knock on the door of being in the playoff. That was a real selling point, and now it's all equal footing between BYU and Utah. Yes, Utah had the recent success, and Whittingham has established himself as one of the best in college football, but they're on the same even playing field. And that, I don't think Utah wanted to embrace that. And, I think it's well documented the history between these two schools. BYU is always kind of willing to just kind of take it there and, embrace the rivalry and say yes, because BYU, when they push back, there's a lot of, ramifications that come with BYU because they're a faith-based institution and they can be easily hated. So they're doing everything in their power to be the most well-liked team. It seems like, they got the brownies, they got the ice cream, whatever it is. They're looking to do anything to be liked.
Yeah.
But, I think for Utah, and I think these Pac-12 schools in general, I think there was this feeling in the Pac-12 that they just felt they were better than everyone. And it was kind of a reality check. I mean, the Pac-12, when people say, it didn't have to be this way. Well, for decades they were always just sticking their nose up at everyone, and it did not have to be this way. If they accepted the $31.5 million, which was reported out there for ESPN and Fox, the Big 12 is in shambles right now. Like, we might be talking about no Big 12, and the Pac-12 is moving on and adding, Oklahoma States and adding TCUs and adding Houston's, and BYU's left in the wilderness again. So, that is a big turn of events, what happened. The Big 12 is very fortunate. And they're survivors, though. And I think that's one of the great things about this league is they always find a way to adapt and survive. And that's kind of the name of the game in this era of college athletics. And I think there's something to be valued there about how they're fighters. And I think that's going to be the DNA of this league. And I'm curious to see if Utah and Arizona State embrace it. I think Arizona and Colorado are. Colorado's a great addition because they've got history. And I think a lot of programs, Kansas and Kansas State, are very excited to rekindle those rivalries. But, Utah and ASU are very kind of hesitant. But I think they should embrace it because I think they can both have unprecedented success that they didn't even experience in the Pac-12.
So I think that, now that I think about it, I think Colorado is such a perfect Brett Yormark type of institution to add, right? Yeah. Where it's like, maybe there's not a lot of substance there, but there's a lot of eyeballs, and that's kind of what we need right now. Like, you think about what Coach Prime did. I mean, the SI Sportsman of the Year, right? On top of that, the football games that he was involved with, I mean, can you imagine? The biggest, most watched college football games of the season, 2 of them were Colorado football. That is an insane prospect to think. The most watched college football game on the history of ESPN is a Colorado State freaking football game. And when you look at it, those are 2 not very good teams. And that's what you bring. And so I think that at the very least you get this, this PR bump from that. You get the legitimacy of a team like Utah, and now even Arizona, I think, that's on the rise. And you're going to get that. So there's a lot of questions still that I have, and we'll take on some of them later on in the hour as well as we kind of get you ready for this new look conference as well. But I do think that there is a ton of excitement. I'm pumped for it because I do think – I wonder, though, too, because Utah fans are like, this is, beneath us. But the idea that they'll just walk in and be the conference champions, how long does it take till Utah does hold that crown up? I think if they – honestly, they could do it year one because of who's returning to that team.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, though, Oklahoma, they're outgoing. They're going to the SEC. They didn't get to the Big 12 title game the last 3 years. And all these programs, except Texas, who didn't win a title for 14 years in this Big 12.
They weren't slouches, right?
I mean, so these programs, this league has an amazing ability, Alex, to inherit a high-end three-star like an Ollie Gordon. And because of the media resources and the resources that these universities have compared to, say, Group of 5 programs, they can really maximize the potential of these high-end 3-stars to where they end their careers and they're like a 4 or 5-star prospect. And that's kind of the difference in the Big 12. You don't get the turnkey ready prospect. You don't. And Utah's had a little bit more of that. When we look at like a Lander Barton who just steps in day one, he's ready to go. He's a dude. But this league has great developmental coaches like Chris Kleiman and Mike Gundy. They can scheme, and that's going to be some great chess matches between them and Kyle Whittingham. Kalani Sitake learned how challenging these coaching staffs are. And like Matt Campbell even, who people thought was on the downward slide, he had a nice bounce back, and they're going to be really good next year. So I just think there's some underrated coaching because I think far too often people look at the logos on the helmet and they just think, well, they haven't really done much nationally. Texas and Oklahoma absorbed the oxygen in this league for so many years. Well, now they're gone. And now these programs are going to take the spotlight like never before, and including Utah. Like Utah was even in a league where USC, even when they were down, it was like, USC, what are they doing? What's USC doing? What's Oregon doing? Like no one ever gave respect to Utah. Now they can take a spotlight as one of the top programs in the league. They should be excited about that component where they can be a leader of a conference.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. Now that I think about it, you say this conference has a way of just doing weird things, right? Just being strange, and the outcomes are not predetermined. I mean, ask TCU how'd it go this year, right? Like that is, I mean, and to basically have a lot of the same talent too. I mean, it wasn't like they went, yeah, we lost all 44 we lost our 2 deep on both sides. Sorry, man, like we're not going to be able to do it. So I think that there's a lot to look forward to. There's a ton of competition, and you add these 4 teams. They're not immediately going to come in and be world beaters, probably, but I could see of all these teams, Utah could be one that could make some immediate noise. Kyle Whittingham's going to have his guys dialed up. Let's take our first break of the hour here. We'll come back. We got tons to talk about here as well. We do have our power rankings coming up in just a little while, but let's jump in around the corner here, and we will get to some of the more interesting things that like I said, I've got a couple of questions to ask still. How long is it going to take for BYU to become competitive? Who's Colorado's rival going to be? I mean, my goodness, you talk about somebody who feels like they're not really fitting into the narrative right now. It's like we thought Utah was the rival, but will the Big 12 have multiple college football bids in year one? We'll talk about all that and more. Stay right here with us. It is First and 12, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone, and also right here on KSL News Radio as well. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. More to go around the corner. Stay with us.